Good morning and welcome back. Good afternoon, rather. So, today we are going to move on to another poet, W.H. Auden, right? Christian Hugh Auden, born in 1907 in England, and he's one of the few poets that you're going to read who are actually Anglo-American. So if we are doing British American poetry, he's actually British and American, as British as well as an American. And I'll let you tell you how and what circumstances led to this kind of dual identity that W.H. Auden has. Now, before we go on, just a quick brief about Auden's poetry. We are going to read this poem, The Unknown Citizen, right? We are going to read this poem today. If you remember, in the list of poems that I gave you for your presentations, I had given you another poem of Auden's, Who's Who. Some of you have done a presentation on that poem. If you haven't, it would be a good idea to go and have a look at that poem. It is one of the poems, along with Unknown Citizen, where we see the effect of, the war, the disillusionment, the changes in the society that had come in the middle of 20th, in the 1920s and 30s, towards the middle of the 20th century. So go and have a look at who's who. And today, but in the class, we are going to do the Unknown Citizen. Now, before we go on with the poem, so just to give you a brief overview about Auden's poetry, he was influenced by the works of Thomas Hardy. You've already read Thomas Hardy, The Ruin Maid and the Titanic poem, if you remember. So he's quite influenced by Thomas Hardy. He's quite influenced by Robert Frost, Emily Dickinson, both the poets we are going to study later on in the section of American poets. In fact, we are going to start with the section on American poets next week. And Auden is a very interesting transition because, as I said, he is American. He was American, and at some point of time, he was also British. So he's influenced by Thomas Hardy. He's influenced by Hopkins, Gerald Manley Hopkins, so British authors, and William Blake. And he's also influenced by American writers like Emily Dickinson, Robert Frost, and so on. So he's writing so his early work dates to from between 1922 and 1939. 1922 and 1939. So if you can see this time and this, he was born in 1907. So 1922, he would have still been a teenager. So he started writing quite early. And that is why we have this whole, lots of collections, a lot of poetry written by W.H. Auden. He was quite an influential figure at the time. Uh, He's also he was also his range of poetry, right? A very wide range of poetry shows one his development as a poet and also the changing times. So look at that from 1922, he was born in 1907 and passed away in 1973. He kept on writing till 1973, and the later work is dated between 1958 and 1973. So, as you can see, between 1922 and 1973, these were quite eventful years in the history of the world, the things that were going on. This was the time of the two. Started writing between the two world wars, during the Cold War, during the time when Britain was losing its, status as a world power, as this empire, global empire. The countries, the nations are becoming independent. So he lived through very turbulent times, and his poetry is not only a kind of a story or gives us a history of his development as a poet, but also it is a reflection on the changing thoughts, on the changing ideas, on the changing uh, ways of the world. Right? So he has been really admired for his technical virtuosity. I mean, he had a lot of time. His initial works, 1922 to 1939, he follows the earlier English poets like William Blake and Thomas Hardy. Also, sometimes very Houseman. So very similar themes he's writing about society. He's writing about political issues of the time and very centered on Britain. So, country, British countryside, British society, the problems with the society, just as we saw in Hardy's and Houseman's poems, we find a similar trend of thought in Auden's early work. So he's popular. He incorporates current events. He incorporates vernacular speech, that is the spoken, not like not a very literary language, but spoken language. So vernacular speech, and at the same time he draws inspiration for earlier writers. So wide-ranging influences from Hardy, Horseman, Yeats, right? He was a very voracious reader of W.B. Yeats. So in 1939, he moved to America, and this is uh, right at the start of the Second World War. Right at the start of Second World War, he had already kind of made a name for himself in England. And now, with the turbulence in England, with the turbulence in Europe, he moved to America. He moved to America, and his beliefs changed radically between his youthful career in England, when he was ardent advocate of socialism, and the later phase in America, where he's much more conservative. He's preoccupied with religion, Christianity, and so on. So, there is it is, and it is mainly because he witnessed this upheaval. Even though he moved to America, he witnessed the war in Europe and goings on in Europe. He turns to religion. He's disillusioned from with modern life. He's disillusioned with the idea of technology, progress, modernity. He turns to religion as a source of comfort. And in the later work, we see this preoccupation with religion as a source of comfort. Now, coming to the poem Unknown Citizen, the Unknown Citizen. Now, first of all, when before we start, you must write down this term satire. What is a satire? What is satirical writing? Satire is writing that exposes, sorry, my mistake here, but writing that exposes or ridicules vices or stupidities of an individual, a group, or groups, or institutions, or humanity at large. So satire is something that criticizes and ridicules an individual, a group, a society, a rule, regulation. I'm sure you must all have read it in newspapers, in some stories. So satire is basically some ridiculing of exposing the hypocrisies, the vices, and stupidities. Now, satire varies in tone and attitude, and it is brought into a work through words, through various techniques, and through the style of writing. And the Unknown Citizen is a form of satire, and I will show you what techniques Auden uses to create this satire in this particular poem. Remember, satire can be really harsh, right? Satire can be really harsh. It completely denounces, criticizes a system, or it can be indulgent, right? It can be indulgent. It's not so harsh. It's pointing out the stupidities. Then it aims not to denounce, not to destroy, not to completely do away with the system, but kind of, change, make some changes, and so on. So, okay, let's start with the poem now. W.H. Auden's The Unknown Citizen. Now, this is a nameless, the poem is dedicated, the poem is about an unknown citizen, right? Not an unknown man, not unknown human being, it is citizen. What does this word signify? What does it mean when Auden uses it in this context? And think about it, keep that in mind as we go on, right? So remember that it is about unknown citizen. Think about the significance of the title of this poem as we go on. Now, this poem is it is who is the citizen exactly? here we get some idea of the citizen's identity. We get some idea of the citizen's identity. What number is this? JS/07M378. So let's start with a little prologue to this, or a little epigraph to this particular poem. So the or rather a subtitle to this poem. It establishes the identity of the citizen. It's like a little social security number, or the IC number, or some kind of number that the state gives to each of its citizens to signify their status as a citizen of a country or a citizen of a nation. It does not usually have the name. So, or it is, but it does signify an individual who is a member of the nation. It is just a vague string of letters and numbers. Uh, JS could probably be the initials of the citizen. There could be something alluding to his date of birth. M could be the could identify as male, but we really do not know. This would make sense to the people who keep the statistics, the people in the census department, the people in the population management department. But overall, it really gives us no. It reduces the citizen. It reduces the man to a citizen, and the citizen to this number JS/07M378. So, in a way, it is ironical as we go on. The state has erected a monument, right? The state has created this marble monument erected by the state. The state has created this monument for a citizen. The state has taken pains to create, made an effort, taken pains to erect this marble monument, but it has not really given a name to the citizen. It has not given any sort of individuality, individual identity to the citizen. So we have lots of these memorials for the unknown soldiers, the people who cannot be identified, right? But here it is just an unknown citizen. Now go as you read the poem. Let's read the poem. He was found by the Bureau of Statistics to be one against whom there was no official complaint. And all the reports on his conduct agree that in the modern sense of an old-fashioned word, he was a saint. For in everything he did, he served the greater humanity. So that is one of the things that identifies the citizen. The citizen was found in Bureau of Statistics, right? He's found in, or she is found in the Bureau of Statistics. He's a statistics in the population, or he's statistics in terms of the population numbers and so on. So what do the statistics about this citizen say? That there was no official complaint, and all the reports agree, and all the reports that are there about him, they agree that in the modern sense of an old-fashioned word, he was a saint. He had done nothing wrong ever. For in everything he did, he served the greater community. Now, it's a widely anthologized poem. It is, you would find it in lots of anthologies which carry Auden's poetry, and put it it kind of portrays the character whose life has been whose life, now that he's dead, whose life is now being defined by the state, whose life is now being described by the state. Who is the speaker here? Who is speaking these lines? Who's the writer? Probably if these lines are on the marble monument, then who is the writer? Whose words are these? Probably of a state bureaucrat, right? Of a state bureaucrat who goes and tries to learn the maximum about what he or she can about this unknown citizen. And where does he go to learn about that unknown citizen? Not to his family, not to his friends, not to his personal documents and letters and so on, but to the official documents. And that is, he starts with the Bureau of Statistics, and he says that there was no complaint, he was a model citizen, he served the community, right? He served the community. So he was, in a way, probably a willing, tax-paying citizen. Did not have demand any particular favors. He did not do anything out of ordinary in his in his everyday life. So, in a way, he's faceless and he's nameless. And the reason why he's good, or the reason why it is said that for in everything he did, he served the community, is that, like, he really did not upset anyone. He really did not have any bad records about him. So, in that sense, he fit in with the state. So in everything he served the greater community, except for the war. Till the day he retired, he worked in a factory and never got fired, but satisfied his employees. Fudge Motors Inc. Yet he wasn't a scab or odd in his views. For his union reports that he paid his dues. Our report on his union shows it was sound, and our social psychology workers found that he was popular with his mates and liked a drink. So that is So one, he starts with the government statistics, Bureau of Statistics. So he finds the speaker, the government state writer or bureaucrat does not really find anything wrong with the citizen there. And so he goes on next to the workplace, right? How was he at his workplace? So except for the war, except for the warriors where this particular citizen would have fought in the war, he worked in a single company and never got fired. So he took off time for patriotic duties for the country like the war. But apart from that, he worked at this company called Fudge Motors Inc. And he unquestioningly joined the union. He paid his dues. There was nothing scab or odd in his views. He followed the people. He followed the herd. He did not have any particular individual unique views that would upset the union or the factory or the employers. He just followed everyone. There was nothing remarkable about this, uh, according to the statistics, according to the reports at the workplace. There was nothing really remarkable about his views and about this worker at large. The unknown citizen enjoy. So this unknown citizen also enjoyed, but it wasn't as if he wasn't a good member. He had friends and he liked to have a drink occasionally. So in a way, social psychology, this is social psychologists who say this, social psychology workers. That means he was popular, he was reasonably popular and liked to drink. He was a normal human being. There was nothing. This is important, that it was social psychology workers found. So there are social psychology workers working for the state who keep a tab on people, who keep a lookout on people who might be peculiar in the ways, who do not blend with others. But the social psychology workers report that this person was absolutely normal, nothing remarkable or unique about him. Right? So, in a way, social psychology workers also intrude on personal life. So, they are keeping a tab, they're keeping an eye on whether he's popular. Does he like to does he like to meet with his friends? Does he like to drink? Okay, he likes to drink. Is he an alcoholic? No, just like to drink. So, the state intrudes in the personal life of the citizen and keeps a record of him. Now, moving on. The press were convinced that he bought a paper every day and that his reactions to advertisements were normal in every way. Policies taken out in his name prove that he was fully insured, and his health card shows he was once in hospital but left it cured. So, from the statistics department, just a number in the population, to his workplace. So we are entering the life of the citizen slowly from a very wide, from a very wide area where he's just a number in the population statistics. We get to know him as an employee, and there was nothing remarkable in his records as an employee. The state intrudes in his personal life and goes deeper, and then his everyday life and habits. The press are convinced that he bought a paper every day. Who's, does the unknown citizen say that he bought a paper every day? Does the family say that he bought a paper every day? No, it is the press that is convinced that he bought a paper every day. The press, because that is a normal behavior, right? That is a normal routine. So the press is convinced that he was so normal that he bought a paper every day, and that his reactions to advertisements were normal in every way. So it does not talk about reaction to news, does not talk about reaction to contemporary issues, but his reaction to advertisements are normal. Advertisements are the important thing here for the press. So his reaction to the advertisements were normal in every way. The policies taken out in his name prove that he was fully insured, and his health card shows that he was once in hospital but left it cured. So look at this. From the first, his record is there in the statistics department. Then there are records of the citizen at his workplace. There are records there are reports about him in the union. There are reports about him with social psychology workers. There are reports about his behavior with the press. Then there are reports about insurance policies and health cards. So it is like, all these documents, and I'm sure all of us, your parents, you in a way, all of you have these documents, and as you go on, as you grow up, you join a place, you would have more and more such paperwork which is going to detail and document every aspect of your life, right? Not you as a person, but it's like a record of the citizen's life. It's like a record. These documents are like a record of our everyday life. So in a way, we leave in what you say in your technical language or computer language, you leave footprints, right? You leave these traces in various, whether it's an insurance company, whether it's a trade union, whether it is with the psychology workers, you kind of leave your traces with everyone as you move on with life. And through these traces, if the state wants, if the government wants, it can trace every aspect of your life. Both producers research and high grade living declare. Both producers research and high grade living declare he was fully sensible to the advantages of the investment plan and had everything necessary to the modern man: a phonograph, a radio, a car, and a frigidaire. Frigidaire is refrigerator. Our researchers into public opinion are content that he held the proper opinion for the time of the year. So the citizen is defined not only by his workplace, his hospital records, his trade union reports, but then he's also defined in terms of his consumption, right? What did he consume? What did he buy and use in his everyday life? Both producers research and high grade living. So these are market researchers. So the researchers and surveys and all these things, they declare that he had installment. He was fully sensible to the advantages of installment plans. So probably he bought things. He bought things on installments. He knew about installment plans and he used installment plans. So those installment plans are kind of again a trace of his consumption, habits of consumption, and had everything necessary to a modern man. So, what are the things necessary to a modern man? A phonograph, a radio, a car, and a frigidaire. All the material things, right? All the things, all the information that can be gleaned from research surveys, from the companies, from the installment plans, that these are the things that he had, and these are the things necessary to the modern man. And see how material it is. Does not talk about family, does not talk about children, and so on till now. It is talking about these are the things that define a modern man: a phonograph, a radio, a car, and a frigidaire. Our researchers into public opinion are content that he held the proper opinion for the time of the year. So the citizen, according to the researchers into public opinion, always maintain the ways of thinking that was common, right? That was same as everyone else. As I said earlier, when we were talking about his play in the, earlier on when he says he wasn't a scavenger or odd in his views, there is nothing unique or remarkable, nothing that would make the state or the employer or the union uncomfortable. He went along with the herd. It was his opinions were common. They fit with the state policy or the company policy, so he did not really question about anything. The bureau would not be, the state or the public opinion bureau would not be pleased if the citizen had, in a way, challenged the system by his points of view, had pointed out the problems with the system by his by telling his perspective. But now he's an unknown a citizen. He's being celebrated. There is a monument because he did not really challenge the system. So, in that sense, he passes the public opinion test. When there was peace, he was for peace. When there was war, he went. Right? He followed the state. When there was peace, he was happy. When there was war, he went. It's almost as if he did not really question anything. Right? So he continues to please the state, follows the state. He was married and added 5 children to the population, which our eugenist says was the right number for the parent of his generation. Eugenists are basically it's an obsolete or obscure, but it was a field of knowledge that saw its heyday in middle of 20th century. It is not really, but basically it is about eugenics. You can find out about population engineering, how to produce, how to have a good population, how to have a more skillful, able population. It was a very controversial branch of learning, something that was used by Hitler, right? When he was talking about how to, when he, the whole propaganda about the Aryan race with blonde hair, blue eyes, and everything. So eugenics there. You can probably go and do a search on the internet about what exactly was eugenics, but it is now an obsolete branch of science. Even when it was there, it was very controversial, right? But coming back to this poem, when there was peace, he was for peace. When there was war, he went. He was married, added 5 children to the population, which our eugenics says was the right number for a parent of his generation. So in every way, he was conventional, right? It's he gets married conventional. What is a conventional life in society? You grow up, you get a job, you get married, you have children, you look after the children, you turn them into responsible citizens, and therefore do your duty, you pay taxes and so on. So in every way we have seen here he was a conventional citizen. He did not really he was such citizens are a blessing to the state. And the last one, was he free? Was he happy? The question is absurd. Had anything been wrong, we should certainly have known. And I think these are very important lines. Was he free? Was he happy? The question is absurd. Do we know whether the citizen, did he feel free? Did he feel happy? Did he feel constrained living with this trade union, being ordinary, living the conventional life? Was he happy about it? Did he feel the constraints? Did he feel freedom? Or did he feel tied down by the society? That question is absurd. We have so many records of him. That means we know him. We have so many records. We have captured each and every aspect of his life. If there was anything wrong, who's we here? Again, the speaker, who's a state bureaucrat, and probably he's a representative of the state. So, in a way, we refers to the state. So, if there was anything wrong, the state, that is we, should have certainly have heard. Right? So, that is the life of an unknown citizen. That is the life of an unknown citizen. And he has been described as somebody who's a non-thinker, really does not possess any remarkable or different opinions, and that we do not really know. Probably he did possess some of these, some opinions that did not suit the society or the state, but he never really made any, he did not really upset the boat, he did not really upset people, there are no records of it. Probably it's present amongst his family or friends, but there are no really, he did not leave any records. And if the inquiry into the status of his freedom and happiness is just absurd. It is, it leaves us with a kind of a bland awareness that how dull, how conventional the life of the citizen might have been. But remember that it might not have been so. This is what is captured by the records. Do you think the records are complete? Do you think the record from these records we know absolutely everything about this citizen? Does he kind of, he's a nameless, he remains nameless and faceless, and even with these records we just capture his public life. We do not really know the citizen personally, we do not even know his name. He just remains a number to the state, and that is an official record of his life. And therefore I hope you can see the irony the state claims in the last line. If there was anything wrong, we should certainly have heard, right? So the state claims that there was nothing out of ordinary in his life. But surely, I mean, I'm sure all of you recognize that this record of the citizen's life is incomplete, is it does not really capture his life, the citizen's life, his identity, his relationships, the entirety of his life completely. This is also a comment on the contemporary political times, contemporary political policies, which reduced the citizen and individual into just a number, and then kept a record of the citizen's life. So a citizen, the whole life is reduced to this kind of record, these kind of documents which capture his life. At the same time, they stifle his personality, his individuality, his individual character, and individual is placed completely within a bureaucratic wall of the state, and therefore remains unknown, the unknown citizen. Now quickly going over the formal pattern of this poem. If there is some kind of rhyme pattern, if you can make out, to be here, to be and agree. So there is some kind of rhyme pattern. So complain and was a saint, community, but then it's like it changes, retired and got fired. So A B C D D. All right. So there is some kind of rhyme pattern, but extremely, it's extremely irregular, right? So it is extremely irregular. So the poem is a mix of free style of writing, free verse, not really free verse, since there is a rhyme pattern, but uh, there is some kind of freedom in this writing, not like the sonnet where it is completely the lines are short, some lines are very short, some lines are longer, which shows that he's not really following any rhythm, right? No iambic pentameter or no anaphest here really. So it is, what does this mean? What does this mean? It's probably like, it's probably imitates, the form imitates the content, as I said. So in a way, collecting information. So the haphazard way in which the information about the citizen is available from various documents. So in a way, it kind of is imitated by the rhyme scheme. There are some rhyme schemes, but it changes. It changes throughout. So here you have, here we again have some rhyme A B, but again, it keeps on changing uh, throughout the poem. All right, so that was the poem, The Unknown Citizen, and a couple of features that make this poem a satire. As I told you, we've discussed this. Why is it a satire? So, if you agree, you could agree that you would agree. I hope that this particular poem it ridicules or exposes the vices, right? It criticizes the vices of individual or group, institution or humanity at large. Here it is criticizing the vices of the institution of the state, institutions of the state, right, which reduce an individual to merely a number and a set of official documents, official records. How does Auden create this satire? One, by claiming to have an idea about the life of a citizen through his official records, the use of bureaucratic language, which is very cold, which is very cynical. It reduces a person to a number. There is no voice or individuality accorded to an individual. We do not really see this man, how was his relationship to his wife, to his friends, to his children. We do not really know anything that makes him unique, his likes, dislikes, what he loved, hated, his personal victories, the tragedies of his life. We do not really know anything about the unknown citizen. And yet, the state bureaucrat, the speaker, claims to know the citizen, right? So, this persona of the speaker, perhaps a bureaucrat, as I said, and he's a voice of the state, which is authoritative, but at the same time, it's reducing another person, it's dismissing another person. Was he free or happy? That question is absurd, right? He's dismissing the personal life of personal life of an individual, and the speaker only cares about statistics, about official information. For that is, that is the only thing that is important to proclaim that this particular citizen was a model citizen. Of course, there is a theme of modernity, technology, and alienation of human being. And I think this is an important term that you should explore a little bit more. Alienation. What is alienation? You feel as if you're an alien in a particular setup. You do not really belong. You do not fit into this. That is why you feel like an alien. So alien, you feel like you do not fit in a particular society. So he says that what Auden felt that with the changing times, especially with the war and technological development of culture after the war, there is a disconnection between human beings, between each other, right? So there is a disconnection between the human beings. There is destruction of old traditional value systems which brought people together. The faith in humankind. Think about Second World War. The faith in human nobility, human progress has been shaken, right? Second World War, remember? So there is an alienation that each and every human being felt, that the people who survived the war felt after. And this poem expresses the alienation, how we all feel reduced, how our personal concerns, how everything is reduced. We do not really feel that as individuals we fit into the society. Now remember, this is not for all of us, this is not for everyone, but think of a person living or in the immediate aftermath of Second World War. Right? What kind of a world is this? Is this what science is leading us to? Is this what technological advancement? Is this what modernity meant? Is this what we were going? Is this what humanity and its progress was supposed to lead to? So the whole feeling of not belonging, not being comfortable in the world around you, that is a feeling of alienation. Think of this unknown faceless citizen, right? This unknown faceless citizen. The society, the state, right, with its official documentation, with its statistics, with its health card reports, union reports, all these paperwork has alienated an individual who's unique, who's remarkable, who's personal, who has his likes, dislikes, loves, hates, and so on. The state has alienated all that, and the citizen is reduced to a list of documents and a string of numbers and alphabets. Thank you. See you again.